You've sat through a terrible movie for 90 minutes. The plot is nonsensical, the acting wooden, yet you stay. Why? Because you paid $14 for that ticket, and your brain refuses to walk away. The sunk cost fallacy is one of the most pervasive cognitive biases in human decision-making. It's the force that keeps you glued to a bad movie, trapped in a failing business venture, or holding onto a toxic relationship. The term comes from economics. A sunk cost is any expense, money, time, effort, or emotion that's already been incurred and cannot be recovered. Rational thinking says these costs should be irrelevant to future choices. But humans aren't rational. We're emotional, prideful, and loss-averse. We consistently violate this principle, allowing past investments to distort our present decisions. This bias quietly costs us far more than movie tickets. It drives governments to escalate disastrous wars and keeps people stuck in cycles of regret. The phenomenon was first formally described by economist Richard Thaler in 1980. He showed that people systematically fail to ignore sunk costs, instead letting past investments distort their choices. A classic 1985 study by Hal Arks and Catherine Bloomer drove this home. They asked participants to imagine buying a $100 weekend ski trip to Michigan, then later discovering a better $50 trip to Wisconsin. Logically, Wisconsin offers more value, but when told they'd already bought the Michigan trip, most chose Michigan anyway. In a real-world experiment, they sold theater season tickets at different prices. Students who paid full price attended significantly more performances than those who got a discount, even though the tickets were identical and the money was already gone. The higher the sunk cost, the more determined people were to get their money's worth, even when it meant wasting additional time. The sunk cost fallacy isn't just faulty reasoning, it's deeply rooted in powerful psychological mechanisms. Loss aversion, from Kahneman and Tversky's prospect theory, shows that losses hurt roughly twice as much as equivalent gains feel good. Wasting a previous investment feels like a loss, and our brains are wired to avoid that pain at almost any cost. There's also a fundamental aversion to waste. We're taught from childhood that waste is bad, throwing away a half-eaten meal or abandoning a project feels like a violation. But this norm becomes maladaptive when the waste has already occurred. Perhaps the most painful driver is ego. Admitting a past decision was a mistake requires acknowledging we were wrong. Psychologist Robert Cialdini describes how commitment and consistency drive people to escalate their commitment to failing courses of action simply to appear consistent, to themselves and to others. The corporate world is littered with examples. The Concorde supersonic jet, which gave the fallacy its alternative name, the Concorde fallacy, was a joint British-French project that continued for decades despite mounting evidence it would never be commercially viable. Governments and companies kept pouring money in because they'd already poured so much in. The result? Billions wasted on a project that never turned a profit. In the tech world, startups often fall victim. A founder spends 18 months building a product nobody wants. Rather than pivoting or shutting down, they raise more money and keep going. We've come too far to quit, they tell themselves. The sunk cost fallacy has been identified as a major contributor to the failure of countless ventures, from small businesses to massive corporate initiatives. Perhaps the most painful domain is personal relationships. We've been together for 7 years, someone says. I can't just throw that away. But those 7 years are a sunk cost. The relevant question is not how long you've been together, but whether the relationship is making you happy now and is likely to in the future. The fallacy keeps people trapped in toxic dynamics, convincing them that past investment justifies continued suffering. This same logic applies to friendships, career choices, and even hobbies. People stay in jobs they hate because they've already invested years of training. They cling to hobbies that no longer bring joy because of the money spent on equipment. The sunk cost fallacy turns our past into a prison, locking us into decisions that no longer serve us. The good news is that awareness is the first step to freedom. Once you recognize the sunk cost fallacy, you can start to counter it. Ask yourself, if I had no prior investment in this situation, would I choose to start it now? This simple question strips away the weight of past costs and forces you to focus on future value. Another strategy is to reframe the waste. Walking away from a bad investment isn't waste. It's a smart decision to stop losing more. The money, time, or effort you've already spent is gone. The only real waste is continuing to pour resources into a losing proposition. Finally, practice self-compassion. Admitting a mistake is not a sign of failure, it's a sign of growth. Every decision you've made was the best you could at the time. Letting go is not giving up, it's choosing a better path forward. The sunk cost fallacy is a quiet thief of time, money, and happiness. Recognize it, and you reclaim the power to choose what truly serves your future.